Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're just going to give it a couple minutes and let people filter in here. Nice to see you on a Friday afternoon. Okay, let's go ahead and kick off since we've got quite a bit to cover today. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Joel Cable. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Art, Design, and Creative and Entertainment Media for Pearson. I look after the BTECs levels 2 and 3 across art and design and creative media. I'm joined today by my colleague, Subject Advisor Jacqueline Viet. Jacqueline, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I just wanted to say hello. Looking forward to supporting you with these changes. I do apologize, I'm gonna have to go off camera for a bit because my train got canceled, so I have to jump on a different one. So I'm just at the train station now, but it's really great to be part of this with you guys.
No worries, thank you, Jacqueline. So hopefully, can you guys see my screen okay? Give me a thumbs up. Can you see it, Jacqueline?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So hopefully you're here today to learn a little bit more about the level 3 reforms, post-16 level 3 reforms in England for art, design, and media as they affect our BTECs and as we move towards reformed BTECs or AAQs and T levels. Now, just to preface this whole meeting today, I've already given this presentation last month. This is a refresher. I'm not a refresher. This is a second running of the same event. So nothing has changed in the last month. So if you were here for the last update in February, this will be just a repeat of that. So you're welcome to drop off if you have already been to this last month, or if I've talked to you separately. For those of you who haven't been to this but have come to some of the briefings last year, the first part of this might be just a little bit of a recap about just the position, the overall position of what the reforms are about. But I'll try to breeze through that relatively quickly because I think most of us are aware of that now and just want to get some more information about how this affects us. So having said all that, I'll go ahead and if you have questions along the way, please feel free to use the chat function. If you want to raise your hand, you're welcome to raise your hand and I can always pick you out and you can come off mute and speak, and that's all fine. Okay, well, so we'll start off with an overview of the reforms. Provisional T-level overlap list and defunding we'll talk about. And then we'll talk about the reform BTEC AAQ qualifications that are in development now. And then we will talk about how we can support you and have some time for any questions and answers after that. We'll do our best to answer. There's still uncertainty around some of this, so we don't have all the answers right now. I don't think anybody does, but we're doing our very best to gather that information and try to relay it to you. So let's go forward with that. So just really briefly, the latest publication from DFE in November 2023 around the reforms just laid out that what we already knew, the reforms will affect level 3 qualifications taken by 16 to 19-year-olds and 19 plus who are under adult education budget and the European Social Fund or accessing advanced learner loans on level 3 qualifications. The link in that to the DFE update is informative. If you haven't read through it, it does kind of tell you detail around what the reforms affect and how they will be positioned as new AAQs going forward. In brief, I'm not going to go through all this because this is quite a lot of detail in here, but on the right-hand side here, the phases of reform, 2024, 25, 26 qualifications will no longer be eligible, are the times when the current qualifications will no longer be eligible for funding if they overlap with T levels. We're going to get into this in just a minute in terms of the overlap lists, the provisional overlap list that came out in January, because they do affect some of the media qualifications, the BTEC ones. So that would mean 2024, 25, 25, 26 is when those would be defunded if appeals don't go through, but we'll talk about that in more detail. Alongside that, all level 3 qualifications will be redeveloped in 2 cycles for first teach in 2025-26, which is cycle 1, and then cycle 2 is 26, 27, 27, 28. We're talking about 2026, 27 when we talk about art, design, and creative media qualifications. That's the first teach for the reform qualifications if they are approved by Ofqual and the DFE. Qualifications that are not redeveloped in line with new DFE and Ofqual criteria no longer be eligible for funding. So that means funding will cease for all current qualifications. We have to submit new qualifications. They have to meet new DFE and Ofqual criteria. If they do and they are approved, they'll be available for 2026, September 2026 first teaching. If they don't meet the criteria, they will not be funded. The DFE have prescribed the size of new qualifications and the subjects and sectors which they can be developed. So we are restricted in terms of the size of the qualifications and which subjects specifically we can develop. And this applies to all awarding organizations. It's not BTEC specific. Includes, as you can see on the left-hand side, impacts level 3 BTEC Nationals, Cambridge Technicals, UAL, RSL, and all other level 3 vocational qualifications in England. So the government reforms are really intended to create pathways for learners post-16, and whereby they will choose an academic or a technical pathway. The A levels will form the core of the academic offer at level 3, and BTECs will continue to be available in many subjects to be taken alongside or as alternative to A levels. And those will be known as AAQs, or alternative academic qualifications. T levels will form the core of the technical offer at level 3, and they will cover most occupations that learners might study at 16 to 19. I wouldn't say most personally. I don't think they'll cover most occupations. I think they cover some occupations that where there was previously an apprenticeship standard. The reason I say that for our subjects is that there aren't apprenticeship standards for many occupations that learners will go into in the creative sectors. So what you see in the T levels is representative of where there were previous occupational standards that they could be built upon. And that's why you see pockets of occupations like ceramics maker and jewelry maker, or content creation and production, or events and venue technician, but you don't see a lot of the other parts of the media industry or the art and design industry represented in those pathways. For adults, the same academic qualification offer will be available to 16 to 19-year-olds, but the DFE recognized that a greater choice of technical qualifications will be needed, so there will be technical qualifications available to adults as well and funded. So what new BTEC qualifications can be developed? So a limited range of alternative academic qualifications will be available alongside the A levels. Those are the small alternative academic qualifications, so they can be between 150 and 420 GLH, and that is so that they suit a program of study alongside A levels. So what we'll be developing are 360 GLH size qualifications, extended certificates. I'll show you which subjects in a few minutes. And that means that they can form part of the program of study alongside A levels. We can also develop large alternative academic qualifications between 720 and 1080 GLH, so 2 to 3 A level equivalent size. And we will be developing one of those as well. Those will only be funded where there are no T levels that they will overlap with, and where there's a need for a large qualification enabling entry to more specialist areas of higher education, or there is a clear and direct progression link into higher education. So let's move on to what we can develop. First of all, the reform timeline, as I mentioned before, academic year 25-26, funding eligibility will be removed for qualifications that overlap with T levels in waves 3 and 4, and that includes craft and design. And this has been the basis of the provisional overlap lists and for defunding from 2025 that I'll show you in just a minute. And then for academics year 26-27, the funding eligibility will be removed from all remaining BTEC Nationals, and including those qualifications, vocational qualifications for post-16 for other awarding organizations at level 3. So from 26-27, here are the new qualifications that the DFE have said we can develop and that can be available if approved. In the small alternative academic qualification size, we can develop in the following subjects only: creative digital media production, digital games, film and video production, art, craft and design, sound engineering, animation, and visual arts. So there's some overlap between those titles. Those titles are kind of taken from across awarding organization existing qualifications, and the DFE determined that the A-level provision for art and design or for media studies, these titles as BTECs or as alternative academic qualifications could still exist alongside those viably and wouldn't pose a threat to the T levels. So that's why they've given us this list of titles. I'll show you which ones we're developing. In the large alternative academic qualification size, these are the only titles that we can develop too. And this applies again to all awarding organizations, not just Pearson: art design and media or communication, and fine and applied art. So what we'll be developing is an art and design and media qualification, a singular qualification in art, design, and media. They will not accept, because of the T levels in media. So we've got somebody off mute, if you don't mind putting back on mute. Thank you. So for the art, design, and media qualification, they've given us the title there, but they will not accept a standalone media qualification in the large AAQ size. So you won't be seeing any further standalone creative media or media production qualifications in an extended diploma size. Also, what you'll notice is that the small AAQs go up to 420 GLH and the large AAQs start at 720. There's no longer any provision for a 540 or a 1.5 A-level size. So there won't be a 540 first year and then a top up to a 1080 second year. It means that you'll have to, learners and yourselves running these programs will make a decision as to what you want to run, and that will be either extended certificates or extended diplomas or both, but you wouldn't be using the first year and then topping up the second year kind of a program there. So learners would need to be committing to the 2 years basically. Okay. Gemma, I see that have you got your hand up? Sorry, I'm not seeing a hand, but I am seeing a box, like a highlight around your box of around your face there. No questions? Okay. So these are the, just a reminder, if you're not aware already, or if you're here to learn a bit more about T levels, I'm happy to talk about them more in the Q&A. These are the T levels that are on offer in creative and design and in media broadcast production. So occupational specialisms include creative media technician, events and venue technician, and content creation and production. And for craft and design, they include ceramics maker, furniture maker, jewelry maker, textiles, and fashion maker. But again, you can see that those don't cover the full range of media that a BTEC in media would cover, or a BTEC in art and design would cover for the craft and design pathway. So that's why there has been recognition from the DFE that we can develop these large AAQs that can sit alongside these in art design and media, but not media standalone, because they feel that media broadcast production pathway covers enough of a range that media standalone will overlap with it, and you just won't be able to have both of them sitting like next to each other, and they want the T level to grow. Pearson does deliver these T levels. We will be delivering these T levels from September 2024. They were inherited from NCFE, who had originally bid to deliver those, and eventually gave them up, and we've inherited those and taken those over. So those are still with the DFE, with IFATE, and with OffQual for review, and they're meant to be approved this month. So we should be releasing final specifications later in the month, and then sample assessment materials next month for those. So if you're interested in T levels, I've done some T level briefings as well specific to those, and I'm always happy to talk to you guys if you need more information, want to reach out to me. At the end of this, I'll put my email in the chat, and then you can reach out. Jacqueline as well has all her details at the end of this presentation, and she can, we're both happy to talk to you about T levels or anything else you need to speak about. So the reason why I highlighted on this previous slide content creation and production is because that seems to be the specialism through media broadcast and production, which is causing the overlap issues with the current BTECs, and that's why they've ended up on a provisional list for overlap. So this list was released in January. It's a provisional list, and you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 qualifications that ended up on the list, and they're all in media. The first one on that list is a QCF 2010 qualification, and it's already due for withdrawal from August this year. So that's not a concern. That was already in the plan, in the pipeline for removal. The rest of these qualifications, the technical level ones, we thought there may be precedent that they would end up on the list because they're technical. And one of the determinations for whether or not these do overlap with T levels is they should be a technical qualification aimed at progression to employment. So those ones we knew were potential risk. However, the rest of those on the list, we've got an extended diploma in creative digital media production. That's our 2016 RQF extended diploma. And then the other two, which are the 540 diploma in creative media practice and the extended diploma in creative media practice, which are our 2019 qualifications. Those ones are not on performance tables. They are for academic progression to HE. That's their primary purpose. So we were quite surprised to find those last 3 qualifications on the list because the intent for those, they're applied general qualifications and they're not intended for direct progression into industry, although they can lead to that. That's not their primary purpose. And progression to HE is the primary progression route from those qualifications. So based on that, that was a surprise that those came up on the list, and we're still wondering exactly how that was viewed by the DFE, that these could overlap with the T levels and be up on for early defunding from 2025. However, we have got the opportunity to appeal, and we are appealing all 5 of those qualifications. That appeal will come up later this month, and we're just preparing for that appeal. We think we've got very, very strong grounds and solid grounds for appeal, especially for those 3 applied general qualifications that are primarily academic, for academic progression into HE. The qualifications overlap. The overlap was based on overlap with the apprenticeship standards in broadcast production assistant and junior content producer, and they were mapped to the specialism content creation and production in the T level. So that's where they were seeing similarities between these qualifications and one of the T level occupational routes. But we only need to have a third of the content in our BTECs being overlapping with a T level for it to end up on a list. So we think really what happened is just keyword searches across these 2 qualifications, across the standards and across our qualifications, and they felt that there was enough there to warrant a third overlap and pick those up. But it's the academic part of it that's really surprised there. So to successfully appeal, at least one of the 3 defunding tests needs to be disproved. And I mentioned the first test, which is the qualification is academic and not technical. Qualification is considered academic if its primary purpose is assessed to support progression to higher education, which those applied generals are, and technical if its primary purpose is assessed to support direct entry into a skilled job role, which they're not. So that's the test where we never thought we would see our qualifications on these 3 qualifications on that list. So we will be appealing on that, and we've got lots of information and data to support that. I'm not going to go through the other tests. The other ones are about overlapping content. We know there are some overlapping content. Whether or not it's a third overlap or not is a little bit ambiguous as to how DFE will view that. And we know that we've argued in wave 1 with other qualifications around the appeals about overlapping content, and whether that content is intended for the same progression purpose or not, they're not really listening to those arguments very well. So we're not going to be appealing necessarily based on the test 2, but on test 1 we are strongly. Okay. And that's just a reiteration of the overlap test 1 and what we can do to submit. So we're all prepared for that. We've got supporting evidence to go with that. Some institutions, some colleges have sent in supporting evidence and case studies from their learners and the importance of these qualifications to them, as well as destination data. So not a requirement at all, and this is not even a requirement of the appeal. It's not necessarily something that the DFE are going to look at, but we're putting in some supplementary evidence with our appeal as well to show destination data based on UCAS data does not necessarily tell the whole picture, and destination data from colleges that show some of them go to university, but not all go via the UCAS application route. Some of them go later on. Those all still progress to HE, and that shows really, really strong progression, a picture that the DFE may not be even aware of. So if you do, and if you have time, and you've got strong destination data accessible and to hand, and you want to send it to me, we can use that to support the appeal. So if you're running creative media practice or the creative digital media production extended diploma, and you feel strongly about missing that year, having that drop out 1 year early, and you want to help, please go ahead and send me what you've got in terms of destination data and showing strong progression to HE, because that's really what we need to show that overlap test 1 is correct, basically. Okay, I'm going to go through those last two and go straight to the timelines. So 30th of January is when the outcome of the overlap test process was communicated to awarding organizations. 26th of March is our deadline for submission of appeals. Like I said, we're working towards that now. And the outcome of the appeals will be communicated, and the anticipated publication of the final list of qualifications that for which public funding approval will be withdrawn will be May or June. So in May, June time, we'll get that final list. It will be public as to what appeals were successful and those that are still remain on the list where they were unsuccessful. So as I said, we think we've got a very strong case, and we really hope that your qualifications in creative media practice will be safe in creative media production. So yeah, that's the story at the moment. Contingency plans, we have got contingency plans for you if that were to fail. I'll go into those if that comes around. So let's just wait till May, June, and see what happens. If you've got your own contingency plans and you're thinking about other things, if you want to have a conversation about that, I'd really like to get on a call with you and talk to you about it and find out what you're thinking. I've had a couple of centers come to me and say, because these qualifications are on the list and they're going to go in 2025, we're going to move everybody to the T levels. They were already planning to roll out some T levels, but they're moving everybody to T levels, and didn't realize that this is just a provisional list so far. We still don't know what the final outcome is, and also that there may be some alternative qualifications that they could go on to and some alternative options for them. So please have a conversation with me if you're concerned about this. We'd like to talk to you about it and understand where you're coming from as well. So on to our new qualifications that we're developing to submit as AAQs. So we've got 3 small AAQs that we're developing as single A-level equivalents to sit alongside a program of study with A-levels, 1 in art and design practice, 1 in creative media production, and 1 in games design and development. As you saw earlier on the list, those are all parts of the approved list of titles that the DFE will accept for small AAQs. And for large AAQs, we're going to be developing one called Art Design and Media. And the Art Design and Media is kind of an anomaly on that list. As I said, they won't accept a media qualification as a standalone large AAQ, but they have put on the list Art Design and Media. So we are using that to house an umbrella qualification in creative practice that will run the gamut of art, design, and media and allow learners and programs of study to be developed that would include anything from fine art all the way to games development and film and television production, all the media side of it and all the arts side of it. We've got those are quite far in development now. We've been doing focus groups and getting lots of good feedback from the HE industry and from you guys at FE. So they're coming along really nicely, and they're very much in line with the 2019 Creative Media Practice and Art and Design Practice qualifications, which in themselves are exactly the same. And if you run both of them, or if you're familiar with both of those qualifications, they are the same structure, same content, essentially, besides the technical skills content, which goes deeper into art and design practices and media practices. And what we're just doing is bringing those qualifications together. So you can still continue to run in the same way that you will, obviously, if these are approved qualifications, and we hope they will be. You'll be able to run the current the way that you run your current qualifications. They've got the same structure, 4-unit structure, the same sorts of assessments as well. There are some differences because, as I mentioned, they won't be approved for funding unless they meet new DFE and off-qual requirements. So those requirements are on the left-hand side here, you'll see the new requirements from 2026, and you can see the current applied general requirements on the right-hand side there. So the new ones have to have a minimum of 40% external assessment, which are marked by the AO. So that means current qualifications that have no external assessment, the ones that are 100% internally assessed, will now have 40% external assessment. That doesn't mean there's exams. These are going to be practical assessments. They're going to be project-based and quite open and broad to allow for practices across art, design, and media to access them. But they will be externally assessed. So that means that we'll be setting the assessment. It will change every year, and you'll send in 100% of the learner's work to be assessed. They have to have a minimum of 60% mandatory content, which is fine. We've already got more than 60% mandatory content in our qualifications. The internal assessments must now be set by the awarding organization as well. So, whereas previously for internal assessments, we would set I'm sorry, I've just lost my train of thought there. We would set the example assessment briefs or authorized assignment briefs, and you could set your own and get them approved, or just set your own. Now the awarding organization must set the assessments for internal assessment, but we are setting those as very open assessments where basically we give you the parameters and then you set the contexts. So they're still going to be center set essentially, and they will sit there for the life of the qualification. They won't change year on year or series on series. So once we release these, they'll be there for the life of the qualification, the internal assessments, and they'll just give you the parameters and what you have to do to satisfy the project outcomes, basically, which is basically to meet the assessment criteria. So the context will be up to you to set for those internal assessments. The final major project internal assessment will also have a self-directed element to it. So learners will be setting their own way through that and coming up with their own proposal for the final major project in the extended diploma qualification. Assessments can be taken in any order. They're not linear. Up to 2 opportunities a year for external assessments. Because these are very project-based and large, they're going to be just once a year, as with most of our current BTECs. They're going to be recognized and endorsed by HE, synoptic assessment, which they're pretty much 100% synoptic, and multiple sizes offered. I put sizes and nesting to be confirmed, but we can now confirm basically that they won't be nested. So the 360 doesn't nest inside of the 1080. That means it's not a subset of it because it's such a different size qualification. It's not a half of it. It doesn't naturally nest. So they won't be nested qualifications. However, if a learner were not to complete the full qualification, so if you put them onto the extended diploma and they were not able to complete it for whatever reason, they would have enough assessment from their internal assessment to be able to go down to the 360, but they would still have to sit the external assessment in the 360. So it wouldn't nest in the same way as a current qualification where you've got exactly the same external assessments being sat across them, because they are different size qualifications and they don't naturally nest like an existing BTEC does. Okay, I'm throwing lots and lots of information at you. This is the very last bit, and then I'll open this up for questions. Key dates for cycle 2. So just to recap, so autumn 2023, list of qualifications which overlap with T levels, published by DFE. That was meant to have been autumn 2023, it didn't come out till January 2024. February 2024, we submitted a list of qualification titles proposed for development for the DFE. So those titles I showed you that we're developing were put forward to the DFE, and they've accepted those. So that's why we're developing them. February to June is the development window for the agreed title. So that's where we are now. We're working towards June to submit our new AAQ qualifications. July 2025 is when funding approval will be announced for the new BTEC's AAQs. So that will be July of next year. We'll have a final list of approved AAQs, and from that point forward, you can start to make your decisions about what AAQs you would like to offer and start gearing up to deliver them from September 2026. In August 2026 is when funding will be removed from all current BTECs and all other vocational qualifications at level 3 for awarding organizations in England. Final cohort starting in September 2025 will be funded for the full two-year program. And I just have to caveat that by saying, of course, that doesn't include the overlap lists that we've got, those qualifications that are on the overlap list. If the appeals are not successful, that means that those will be defunded 1 year earlier in August of 2025. Again, though, hoping that doesn't happen, I think we have a very strong case that we could keep those until August 2026. September 2026 is the first teach of approved BTEC AAQ qualifications. And there's the lovely Jacqueline Veet. And if she's on the call with us, if you've got any questions for her, that's how you can contact her. If you've got any questions for me, you can contact me directly. And now I will open this up for questions. And thanks for listening, by the way. I know it's a lot of listening to my voice. So Diego, you've said, am I right in thinking that for 25-26, there will be no provision for year 12's creative media students as new AQ won't start till 26-27? So for 2025-26, you will still be able to, as long as they're not defunded early, that will be your final cohort for year 12 to come in at 2025, September 2025, and they'll be funded for the full 2 years. So let me just go back to that slide. Apologies, I'm going all the way back. Oh, sorry, I did go too far. So funding, let's see, August 2026, funding removed from all current BTECs. So yeah, so you'll be able to bring in a new cohort in September 2025. They'll be funded for the full 2-year program. So that's where it says final cohort starting September 2025 will be funded for their full 2-year program. I think that hopefully answers your question, Diego.
Yeah, so thanks, Joel. So there won't be any gaps in the provision, if everything goes to plan.
There won't be any gaps in provision if everything goes to plan.
Okay, thanks.
So that's what the appeal is all about, is making sure there's not a 1-year gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yes, Ellis?
Yes, Amy.
Amy, hi, Amy.
Hi, Joel, thank you. My head of sixth form at the moment is talking about, with these new AAQs, students only being able to take one of them. So they have to do 2 A levels and 1 BTEC provision. So at the moment, he's hesitant to allow that to be media if everything gets approved. Because we've got science, we've got health and social care, other BTEC provisions that we're offering. Is that the case then? Only 1 AAQ can be studied by a learner alongside 2 A levels?
It's a little bit ambiguous. It's a really good question.
Okay.
In the official DFE guidance that I linked to at the beginning of this presentation, which we'll share with you after this, if you go through and read that in detail, it indicates that they would like for the provision to be 1 one AAQ alongside two A levels because they feel that has a stronger progression to industry behind it. I mean, sorry, progression to HE.
I was going to say not industry.
Not industry.
Or HE, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So they
Yeah.
feel that the stats show that two A levels with one BTEC has a stronger progression to HE.
Right.
So that's what they're looking for. But they've also said that in certain circumstances, some learners may be approved for funding for two AAQs and alongside one A level. And they've said there are certain types of learners that might apply to, but that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. But what also hasn't been fully explored is how they're going to police and ensure that that is the program of study that a learner takes. Because across A levels and BTECs, you've got discount codes, but that's only where in the same subject area. So that would mean you wouldn't be taking an art and design AAQ next to GCE art and design.
Okay.
Which, because the discount code would stop that from happening.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that it would stop it if you took two AAQs in different subjects and one A level. And it seems like that's starting to dawn on DFE, and there might be some changes coming, but we don't know for sure at all.
Okay. So could they do a AAQ in creative digital media and a film studies A level?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Thank
As long
you.
as they're not in the same, as long as those are not in the same discount code, we'll need to check. And those are not necessarily confirmed yet. So I need to check into that one. I believe you could do that.
Okay, thank you.
You would be able to take. So I mean, I'm just to in answer to your question though, Amy, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to offer different subject areas in AAQs and allow learners to put together the program of study that fits them. Because if you've got sciences, doesn't mean you can't have.
It's nothing like media. I know,
Yeah.
and this is the thing that I'm kind of arguing. I don't really know enough details, but I'm arguing the case of why shouldn't we? I mean, we've got 25 students choosing it at year 12. It's massive groups, and then a lot of them are doing BTEC science as well. Because as you say, they're a type of learner. They can't really access 3 full A levels. So why can't we still do that?
If you're currently offering BTECs alongside
we
other
are.
BTECs in science, then it should be the same. The same provision should be available.
But it's just that my head of sixth was saying that they can only take the one AAQ. So he kind of wants to keep the science one going.
Yeah, they have to make a choice. Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
See. Yeah. But not all learners want to go into science, so you still have to have
exactly. And I've got one other question, Joel, if that's all right, please.
Sure.
With these new AAQs that are being developed, I know you can't say what's in them yet, but will it be similar? For example, having like your unit 10 film making and then a unit for pre-production, will it be quite similar to that?
No, they're much more similar in structure and in content format to our 2019 qualifications in creative media practice.
Are they?
In our design practice, because those qualifications, we released them in 2019 as off measures, so they're not on performance tables. They're all internally assessed, and basically most of our cohorts have gone over to those qualifications, so they're much bigger than our 2016 qualifications, and that's because they were preferred. They're preferred in terms of the openness of structure to allow them learners more time to develop skills without having to be assessed early on. And the way that the grades aggregate for those, they're much more conducive to learners who are strong in some areas but not necessarily in others. It gives them a different grading for each of the skill sets, basically. So within each unit of those ones, they get a grade for each skill. So if they were to get a pass in one skill area and distinctions in all the rest, they wouldn't take away a pass for the unit like they would in they take away 4 distinctions in one pass. So it depends. So that's why they became so popular. They're more open. They've got a lot more flexibility within them. Obviously, they're all internally assessed. Now, these new ones are structured that way, but they have external assessment, so they will be on performance tables. They have to be on performance tables to be approved for funding. So they'll be funded. Of course, they'll carry UCAS. They'll carry performance table points. They'll have external assessment, but they will retain as much of that openness of structure as
Nice.
the 2019 qualifications, which are much more popular, I would say,
Okay.
than the 2016.
I need to look into the creative media practice from 2019 then. Lovely.
Yes, if you
Okay.
look at that, you'll have a really close indication as to what we're developing. Yeah,
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank
no
you.
problem. I'm just trying to look at the chat here. Bear with me. I'm trying to find my cursor. Okay, so I currently deliver the National Diploma in Film and TV Production. If it was defunded early and the appeal is not successful, would there be a year gap between defunding and the new AAQ? Will the primary option be T levels if this is the case? So there would be a year gap if that one, if the appeal is not successful for that. There would be, the T level wouldn't be the only provision. Of course, we've got the extended certificate in creative digital media production, which would be available. So you could do a half size qualification and then do another extended certificate alongside that. So that's one option. T level is obviously an option as well. And then I guess the other option to consider is, and this goes for those who are also on the creative media practice extended diploma. We also have the art and design practice extended diploma, which is not affected by the overlap. And it is the same qualification as creative media practice in all but technical skills content, but it does allow for creative media practice to be run through it. So for 1 year, you could run the art and design practice qualification, and you can allow your learners to do film and television production through it. You could do games development through it. If you look at the content and you look at the technical skills, you'll see almost all of it applies and has provision for media to be run as well. And that was what we were trying to work towards, was a cross-curricular, cross-disciplinary approach to art and design and creative media. So you'll see in creative media, a lot of art and design skills and graphic design skills and things like that are embedded. So there's kind of a blurring of lines between those two qualifications anyway. And the new AAQ in 2026 is going to be art, design, and media, which is pretty much the full merging of those two qualifications. So for that 1 year gap, it would be worth considering, if the appeal doesn't go through, the art and design practice for 1 year to bring a new cohort onto and run your media through that for 1 year, because if you're on creative media practice, you're already familiar with it. I know that doesn't necessarily apply for the film and television production diploma. And Jill, I can see you're on the line here. Those are the other things that come to my mind. I don't know from your perspective, Jill, and Jill is one of our close colleagues here working with us. And Jill, I don't know if you want to come off mute and say anything more, if you've got other ideas for what could work for the diploma. But my thinking is that there will still be extended certificates available, and that would take off half of that diploma size, and then you'd have to find another extended certificate to run alongside it for that 1 year.
Yeah, I think, Joel, hello, there are other options. I mean, there's also the 540 diploma, which obviously pushes to 1.5 A-level size.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's an option potentially, if you can stretch to that, in terms of that art and design provision still being available. I think from my point of view, I think it was best to wait to find out the results of the appeal. Obviously,
yeah.
in the background, we can be looking to put together what offer could be available for centres. But I think it's fingers crossed for the appeal. And I think, having looked at that evidence, I think there's really strong grounds for that to be overturned anyway.
Yeah. Thanks, Jill, for that. So yeah, there are, I am starting to think about those contingency plans in the background, and I'm starting to listen to what you're saying and what you're thinking. And we will put together, and we will do a full, we'll talk to you all and make sure you're up to date on what happens based on those appeals going through or not, and what you could do following on from that. But I think those are two really good options. There's art and design practice full size, or there's a 540 size that are not affected. There is, and then whatever might come up, maybe some of these qualifications will make it through the appeals, others won't. So we may have other options there. So that's why I'm not going full contingency planning yet, because we don't know yet what may or may not get through that appeal. So let's wait for that. Hopefully that answered your question there, George. But if you're not, then you're welcome to come off mute and have a further discussion around that. Great, thank you. Have we got any other questions or any other feedback for where we are?
Sorry, Joel, I missed when you said about the one AAQ. Did you say it's the case or not? Are they only allowed to do one AAQ along 2 A levels, or can they do more than one AAQ?
So it says in certain circumstances that learners will be approved to take 2 AAQs or funded to take 2 AAQs, but it's not very clear exactly when those cases are and what kinds of learners they're talking about and how they're going to police that. So, but at the moment, the guidance is yes, 1 AAQ alongside 2 A levels. That's,
Okay, thank you.
we think that there may be some winds of change coming there, but we can't be sure about that. It's kind of hearsay at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
We're really hoping, obviously, that 2 AAQs alongside 1 A level will become an accepted program of study by the DFE, and we don't know yet how they plan to ensure that learners aren't doing that, or that centers aren't allowing that to happen. There's not enough detail around that at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. As soon as we find out more, as soon as we get more detail from the DFE, they're being a little bit cautious about what they say about it at the moment because I think they're still working through it themselves. So as soon as we get more information, we'll put it into these kinds of updates, and I'll continue to do them as soon as we have new information. Any other questions? I see some familiar names in the chat. Really good to see you guys.
Joel, could I just come
Yes.
in on what Amy was saying earlier about the whether that the units are going to be the same, and obviously you've already covered that the units for the new AAQs are going to be very different in format. I think probably what's worth saying to everyone is that essentially you could still teach those same skills. It's still about pre-production, it's still about production. You can still utilize a lot of that sort of teaching that you've developed over years. And I would recommend anyone take the time to just, if they want to know more about what those AAQs are going to look like, ultimately either the art and design practice or the creative media practice 2019 qualifications are a really good indication of what those new AAQs are going to look like. So if people really want to get ahead of the game and start thinking about how they might want to start moving across, that would be a good starting point.
I was just going to drop those in the chat, and I don't want to do it while I'm sharing my screen here. But I'll drop the links in the chat to those qualifications. And thanks for sharing that, Jill. You're valuable to have you here. Yes, definitely you can teach all of what you're teaching from the 2016 qualifications through the creative media practice qualification. We had, like I said, we had huge shift from those 2016 qualifications to the 2019 creative media practice. And 100% of the centers I've spoken to have said it was very seamless. They continued teaching the way they were. It just gave them a bit more freedom and flexibility to develop projects that they would like to go deeper into. And it meant that learners didn't have so many units to get through. So it was less assessment heavy, means that earlier units where they weren't quite sharp enough with their skills weren't kind of banked as passes when you know that along the line they're going to get further on and be able to hit merits and distinctions. So it really allows for that. And there's been some really great results coming out of it. And the focus groups we've been doing it, the number one question is, can you please retain as much of the creative media practice and art and design practice qualifications as possible through this reform? And that's what we've tried to do. And that's hopefully we've been successful in doing that. Yes, Amy.
So that I really appreciate that, Jill, because I've just been quickly Googling through the media practices thing, thinking, okay, so am I going to have to redesign a whole scheme of work anyway if I want to continue with these AAQs, or do I just need to go straight to film A level? I would appreciate any kind of advice or examples or contacts the centres that are already doing the creative media practice, just to talk to them, just to see what they're delivering, just so that I can see whether it's feasible for me to say we want to do this to my head of sixth form, if that makes sense. So if there is anybody that you can put me in touch with, Joel, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Sure, but just to, I mean, obviously, just to caveat that with, these qualifications are the current ones, and they're going to be.
I know.
We're redeveloping what these are into something that has external assessment, so they are going to be slightly different.
Yeah.
But you'll get a good sense from them. So, and I've got a list of friendly centers that are really happy to shout about their experiences with these. So I'll send that on to
Amazing.
you.
Thank you.
I'm sure I can get your contact details from Mark, who set these meetings up. So I'll contact you. Or
Okay.
drop me a
I'll
line.
email you if you like, Joel. So then you've got that to.
And I'm just putting my
Yeah.
email in the chat here for everybody. If you've got questions, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to have conversations. I learn as much from you as you do from me, if not more, obviously. So please get in
That's
touch.
great. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Anybody else before we close and let you guys get onto your weekends, hopefully?
Joel, just to say, I've dropped the links to the art and design practice and creative media practice qualification pages into the chat.
Thank you so much, Jill. I saw that. Appreciate
No problem.
that. So and I'll just say in the structure, there are 4 unit structures, 2 units in the first year, 2 in the second year. That is the structure that you'll be seeing in the new AAQs for the 1080 that we'll be putting out. The content is also derived from the same content, so you'll see that coming through. The difference is that there are 5 content areas in those qualifications, and we're going to 7 content areas and 7 criteria. But those criteria will feed through the whole qualification. So one of the nice things about those qualifications is it's one assessment criteria grid that is applied to all the assessments, all 4 units, and 1 area of teaching content. So you teach all the content, and then you sit 4 assessment units. That's the structure that we're using. That's kind of where the openness and flexibility comes from. And there will be 7 criteria basically in the new qualifications as opposed to 5 in the previous ones. So that should give you a pretty clear indication of where we're moving towards with these qualifications. And I'll give you more detail once we've submitted those in June, July time. Okay, great. If there's no further questions, then we'll drop off there. And thank you very much for attending. If you think of anything that you hadn't thought of now, just drop me a line and I'll be happy to talk to you. Have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.